Hi, Gustavo. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. And you?
Good. I put out a general invitation for anyone to join us.
Uh-huh.
And so if you don't mind waiting a minute or two, I have started recording
Yeah, yeah.
and then we can see if anyone else shows up.
Okay.
Have you considered your subject that you want to write about?
Um, Not yet, no. But yeah, I know you mentioned like in the description to choose something like generally just like related to your major, right?
Well, that was a starting point for ideas,
Uh-huh.
just to get started. Basically, uh, hi, Adrian.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. I
So,
sent you a message. I was like, I can't find the link. But after I sent that, I found it as soon as I sent the message. So
oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, sometimes, that happens. Folks forget where it's at, but then they find it.
yeah.
So, we are recording, and I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with you guys and just kind of go over a couple things to get you started on your essays.
Okay.
So
Would you want us to have our camera on or just whatever?
I can't
it's
remember
up to
this.
you, whatever you're comfortable with. That's
Okay.
fine. So it's absolutely your preference. Okay. So first I have the research essay prompt open. And I wanted to go over this because there's a lot to read, and sometimes students just kind of skim through it. Uh, and then I also want to point out where the example is. We'll go over the example a little bit. So the research prompt says to consider how COVID-19 and its variants has altered a particular system of American society and predict the future outcome, so to speak. This is not a general report about COVID-19, but a predictive research essay exploring the past, present, and future effects of COVID-19 and its variants on an aspect of American society. So you see here we have system of American society and an aspect of American society. The other thing I want to point out here about this prompt is that you're seeing here, it wants you to explore past, present, and future. So right there, that is a compare contrast element, comparing and contrasting past, present, and future, and then the effects of COVID-19. So this research essay should be kind of a hybrid format of cause and effect and compare and contrast. So I also say I encourage you to focus on an area of interest to you, especially as it pertains to your major if you have one. If you don't have one, that's okay too. I have had students write here about, well, as I say here I can just read this to you because it's been the same now for a few years. So you could write about something that pertains to your major, or it could be on the American healthcare system, education system, the nation's employment, food and other service industries, impact on the environment, mental health, sports, media, you name it. However, I want to say this is not narrow. Mental health is not a narrowed enough topic. Sports is not a narrow enough topic. These are larger and impact on the environment. That's also, these are all too broad as I'm mentioning them here. So whether you're here in this meeting now, or if you're watching this later as a recording, please know that an essay on how COVID-19 impacted the environment is way too broad for a 6 to 8 paragraph essay. Mental health I mean, that just as is would be covering all the age ranges and all kinds of things. So I just want to point out that this needs to be, whatever you choose, if you say sports, you want to consider arena sports, maybe you'd want to narrow it down even more to like football or soccer, since it's international, but it is supposed to be an American based subject. So how a system in America was affected. So I had a student email me asking something about how there was a reference to how everything's gone back to normal. And my reply on that is that nothing is normal as it meaning nothing has returned to the way it was. Everything has been altered in one form or another. Even the restaurant business, there's delivery systems in place, and it's far more normal, quote unquote, to have your food delivered, more so than it used to. It used to just be pizza and Chinese food that was delivered, and now it's way it's been impacted quite a bit. So that's just one example. If you're going to write about the environment, choose an aspect of the environment, say air pollution, and why that would have been impacted, perhaps due to the commuting, and then the lack of commuting or the change in commuters, and then what would have changed the commute. What used to be, the majority is now it's greatly thinned down, because office buildings, are sorry, I'm kind of stuttering here. Businesses realized that their workers could work at home in their remote offices, and they could save money on rent, for example. Entire office buildings that used to be filled with workers are now empty. So there's a lot of stuff that has been impacted. What you want to do is choose something that interests you, okay? And something that, if you tonight, you guys, if you are still in the realm where you just have no idea, then please watch the news before you go to bed. Go on CNN.com or something like that and look at what's in the news, and consider how COVID-19, I mean, school loans, for example, this is all happening. It all started when school loans were halted during COVID-19, and now it's still, look at the state of the situation. So anyways, there are a lot of different, really it's up to you what subject you choose. It's also up to you to narrow it down to a manageable subject. What I say here is, if it were assigned to me, I'd explore the impact COVID-19 has had on the education system, specifically the college level. So what's here in parentheses, you guys, is showing you how to narrow it down further. Education system, as stated, would include K through 12 plus higher education plus special education and all kinds of things. So see how I narrowed it to the college level. And for both educators and students, you want to identify who you're talking about, who was impacted. So if you're writing about sports, for example, arena sports, well, you have fans, you have players, you have coaches, doctors, all kinds of things. You have the arenas themselves, the sponsors, so make lists for yourself when you are developing your own ideas to who, what, when, where, and how, right? So, and then again, back to the example here, if I were writing this, then I would seek to predict how on-site learning will evolve in the future, which we are now currently right now in this hot second having a Zoom lecture. This is the new normal. You know, our college education system, I believe, is forever altered, and it will never be the way it used to be, where face-to-face classes were the dominant class type, and online learning was very, it's hard to get into a class because so few were offered, and educators, there weren't that many class offerings to teach, and now it's completely different. So anyway, read this a little bit more carefully, but so what this whole parenthetical paragraph is here for is to show you how I would develop my ideas. Who would be included, who would be affected, what would be the future, and claims would be supported by local, state, and national statistics from credible secondary sources. I'd also state my authority as an instructor. So if you're writing about college, being a college, how college courses are, the education system at the college level are affected, you're a student, you may include a little bit of first person example, but not a first person essay. It should not dominate the essay. So anyway, please read this a little bit more carefully, because it is here to help you all develop your ideas. And I don't want to take up too much more time reading it to you, but that is the gist of it. And then here, this should be an MLA format, which you guys have seen and been practicing up until this point. It has not been as part of the grading rubric, but now it will be in this particular essay. So make sure your MLA format is on point. It should be a minimum of 6 to 8 paragraphs. Your works cited page should include at least 3 resources from the library database. So that hopefully, if you guys are doing your homework correctly, that is provided there for you, and you can use that. You may use additional resources, but there should be at least 3 resources from the library database. So make sure your MLA format includes your in-text citations and the works cited page that's correctly formatted. So the works cited page, you guys, should be arranged alphabetically by last name of author. And I'll show you that in the student example, which, by the way, look at that, is our next sentence right there. And there, of course, are no revisions offered on this assignment unless it's submitted much earlier than Thursday. Thursday is our last class, and everyone has the same due date of midnight on Thursday. So in the files section, let's just go to the student example. Notice here, this should be anonymous, but you would have your last name and the page number in the upper right-hand corner. This is a good model for MLA format of what it should look like, including the date, spaces. Notice how all the title is capitalized, every word. And so again, I'm not going to read this to you because we don't have that much time and I don't want to put you to sleep, but please read it carefully and look at the patterns. Look how the student begins this essay by giving a background of COVID-19. The title clearly references their argument. Coronavirus will change the future of the education system. And then they have their thesis statement highlighted. Notice here, COVID-19 has affected students and teachers due to a number of reasons, but learning in the future for our younger generations will comprise, this is a little bit, like I said, none of these are perfect, so it's a little bit of an awkward language choice, word choice, but I think it means we'll end up providing a safe and happy learning environment, redefining the role of the educator in teaching life skills needed for the future. So those are the effects, right? And then, so this is really going to be more or less a cause and effect essay, but you are also comparing and contrasting the past. And so this student begins with talking about how it was before COVID, and then what has happened since, and again, another effect. So those are all present tense. So notice it's kind of like one paragraph is, the intro begins this with the beginning of COVID, but the first paragraph really talks about what education was like before COVID. And then the two next paragraphs are present tense. Then the last body paragraph is about the future of education. So those are your 4 body paragraphs. You have one past or pre, I don't want to say past, like pre or what it was like before COVID-19. So if you're writing about arena sports, and by the way, class, I want to say this to anyone here in this meeting and anyone watching this later. I do not want you to write about education, because it will basically copy the student essay, and it may result in a fail on your part. So strive for originality. Any AI work, anything will be thrown out, given a 0. And you might, in fact, if it's a repeat offense, you will fail the class, regardless of your grade. So do not risk any AI, no Grammarly, that all shows up. That is not your writing. To the students who are using that and thinking it will work on this research essay, it will not. So just fair warning. So anywho, yes, so body paragraph kind of before, what it was like before COVID, middle 2 body paragraphs on kind of what happened during it, and then and like leading up to where you're at now today, and then look from what do you think it'll be like next semester or next year. That is what we're talking about when we say the future. So and when we say present tense, it kind of includes now, so and then of course a conclusion paragraph. So the works cited page, you guys, notice here how the student arranged it alphabetically by the last name of the author. If there is not an author, which sometimes happens, then it would be by the title, and it would just fold in. So they're not separated in any way. It would just be an alphabetical list by the last name of author, or if it's missing, by the first letter in the title. One thing you should include in your works cited page that is not here, that this student did not do, what you guys should do, is to include a date of access. And I'm sure you've seen that in some of the other student examples. There is an additional research essay example from uses a different prompt. But I encourage you all to look at that also for patterns. So you can see how to organize your essays. And that is right here. Oh, actually this, I take it back. This is not a student example. This is here to support you on how to organize your time and write this essay. Now, obviously you guys are limited to just this week, but some of it, you know, if you are doing the module work and say, for example, you already have your topic idea chosen and you use it for the homework assignment, then there you have your 3 resources and you can kind of double up on these assignments and utilize your time that way. But anyway, so that's what this is in the file section. So are there any questions from the students that are here right now?
Would you be able to repeat how the essay should be structured? I didn't get to quite catch it.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Would you be able to repeat how the essay should be structured?
Yes, I will. So introduction paragraph, right? Then and then your first body paragraph. Say you're writing a 6-paragraph essay. Then and you don't, this isn't a tight rule. This is more of a suggestion because you could potentially spend more time on, you could rearrange this a little bit, but my suggestion is this. Introduction paragraph, first body paragraph should cover, like, before COVID, what the quote unquote normal was in your, you know, for your subject, what normal arena sports were like, for example, and, you know, attending a basketball game, whatever. And then what happened to that particular thing, or restaurants, for example. And then so in other words, the first paragraph, kind of pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, what it was like. Then the next body paragraph covers what happened during the pandemic, what happened to your subject during the pandemic. For restaurants, it put a lot of people in restaurant, you know, a lot of workers, a lot of kitchen and front of house waiters and stuff. You know, they were out of a job. Some restaurants were kept alive by becoming delivery services. You know, some people were sending food to emergency room workers to support restaurants and the workers simultaneously. So I'm just kind of throwing out examples. So during the pandemic, what happened to your subject? Then, and you can spend 1 or 2 paragraphs on that. And then you could spend 1 or 2 paragraphs on the future, like up till now, starting with now, which is kind of present and future, straddles present and future. And then you can look ahead at, some of you are just starting your college careers as students. Do you think you'll take all online classes? Do you think those will be more convenient, more normal, more desirable, you know, more challenging? So not everyone loves it. So these are things you can explore in your research. And it'll be good to have all your things that you want to explore before you start your research. Although some of your ideas will come up from what you read. So hopefully that answers your question. Just keep in mind, it should really have a flow that goes past, present, future. And focus on the future and now. Okay, so I see a question here in the chat. For my subject, I chose to talk about neurodiversity in workplaces and schools. How can I structure it like that? I don't know. It depends on your, I think it's too broad for a 6 to 8 paragraph. I would narrow it down, choose one or the other. I don't know what your research has turned out, so, but it'll be up to you, Marlena, to decipher that when you have, you know, based on your actual research. But again, I do want to repeat, I know I'm repeating myself, I'm doing it on purpose, that I don't want anyone to write about the education system at the college level, because that is what I talk about in the prompt as well as the student example. So you are definitely required to have your own original idea to write about. So that's the one that's off the books. Any other questions that I can help you with? Who has an idea of what they want to write about that you might want to impact on air pollution levels? So how would the paragraphs? So this is really going to be up to you guys. I just told you, I just told you guys how to structure that. It's going to be past, present, future. If you have, it'll be up to you, but the focus should be on the present and future of air pollution and why it has changed and why it will continue to change and what that change looks like. So, and the effects. So keep in mind it is a cause and effect essay, more or less. You are writing about how COVID has impacted a particular system in America. So, in terms of mental health, make sure if that is something that interests you, which it has interested students in the past. So, but I don't see it, I don't personally, I have seen it become problematic because students go too wide and too general. So if you're writing about mental health, it should be a specific group of people. You know, keep in mind, using my example to narrow, consider who is affected, and it's not just the patients, it's also the caregivers, but entire systems have changed. The healthcare system has changed. It's not as common to go and sit with a therapist now as it is to contact one online and have Zoom meetings, for example. So, these are just, I'm just kind of throwing out ideas. But I think the air pollution has been impacted, you know, again, how has it, consider how it has been affected and what it will look like in the future. So air pollution in particular, it was heavily impacted by commuting. Obviously, no one drove during the pandemic. Now people are driving, but the commute has thinned out, as I mentioned, and a lot of other things have changed. So I would focus on the present and future and just spend maybe one paragraph on what it was like pre-pandemic. what about the rest of you? Do you guys just want to go around the room and say what your idea is? We have 10 minutes left.
It's AJ or Adrian. I'm honestly just really stuck on what subject to write about.
Okay.
I don't know why I just can't really think of anything. I can't think of, I guess you can say, like an original idea, as you were saying.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. It's also difficult because you guys have such a quick turnaround, so I completely understand. So I'm sure your question applies to a lot of students. And my suggestion, like I said, is if you guys have no idea what to write about, watch the news tonight, see what kind of just, it doesn't, I would say choose something that really interests you, and it can literally be anything. It can be live music. It can be, if you love sports, if you love live music, if you love, restaurants, like I mean, none of this, just don't overthink it. Is my suggestion in terms of brainstorming, and choose, just anything that interests you. And then if you can't think of anything, then consider how something like a veteran, there are a lot of vet students or pre-med students, so you can, or nurses, so it's sorry, I'm trying to read the chats and talk at the same time.
You're fine.
So yeah, just pick something that interests you, do a little preliminary research, and then go to the library database, EBSCO specifically, and see what comes up. But the first thing is make a quick list of just things you like,
Okay.
and then just see how it can maybe work. And maybe horse care, how there's how animal rescue was impacted, all kinds of things like that. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, but so should I only focus on commuting aspect? I think you would have to include other factors. I'm just throwing that out as an obvious one. So instead of being broad, for example, I found that different people with neurodiversity are discriminated against in workplaces. Should I choose only one? Yes, I think you're on to something there. I think you would have,
Just one or two.
I would suggest narrowing it down to one, only because it is, but maybe they all kind of fit into the same category and are being approached in a similar way. You'll have to tell me, Marlena. I think that's a fascinating subject. Could cause and effect be included in one paragraph? Probably not. You would have different, you specify what caused something and then the effect of that cause, and those would be two different paragraphs, probably. I would separate them, especially during the draft. We have 6 minutes left. Are there any other questions that you guys might have that I can help you with?
You did say that a first person example is okay in the essay, right?
Yes, but it should not be a first person essay.
Yeah.
It's only because you probably lived during the pandemic and were
Yeah.
affected, right? But that also wouldn't replace an outside resource. But I've also been asked the question, can I interview my uncle who is a truck driver, because they're covering how truck driving was affected, for example. So if you guys do interview, if you do choose, or say maybe your mom or your aunt or someone is a nurse, and you're going to write about how nurses were impacted, or emergency workers, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you have a relative who's a fire person. So anyways, the point is you may choose to interview an expert on the subject that you are writing about, and that would be okay also. I just wanted to put that out there in case that inspires anyone to do that, or maybe it might help with the brainstorming, just idea. Should the extra credit essay be in first person? Yes. The extra credit essay should be in first person because it's inherent to the prompt, kind of a what did I learn? How did revision, how did the revision process? I think the question is, what did you learn about the revision process this semester? Because it was offered in every assignment, and many of you chose to revise and either saw a change in the grade, or maybe didn't do enough revision and didn't see a change. So that's a good question. Any other questions? It doesn't have to, since we have this time together, just so you know that we do have 3 minutes left and it will just automatically cut off.
For the extra credit essay,
Uh-huh.
it says it has to be what's it called? 6 to 8 paragraphs, right?
Yes.
And that we need to answer the 3 questions.
Not in order. No, those are brainstorming questions to get your ideas started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And one more thing about the essay. Does it count as another assignment, or like it actually adds more points onto our grade?
It does not count as a normal assignment. It actually would add grade. It would add points.
Okay, yeah, I was a bit confused when I would put like just a score in for the essay, and then it wouldn't change much because it counted as a normal assignment.
Yeah, this would, because you'd get say you got 80, say you wrote a great extra credit paper, you'll get a lot of points. But I would say a bad extra, a not so great essay wouldn't help much. So I did want to put that out there. For the future part of the research essay, it would be describing how the subject is predicted to be impacted in the future. Yeah. So for example, using my own example, on education, I mean, I look into the future and I see more and more online classes being offered. I'm on the distance education committee and I review other educators' courses and things like that. So it's becoming more like an additional part of my job. And it's something that has a larger place, as for educators and for students. So hopefully you'll find more information as you do your research. Don't try and think of all this stuff before you start reading. It's important that you all actually research your subjects before you start writing. This should not be off the top of your head. Even though you can include a little bit of first person here and there, a whole paragraph, no. It's just limit yourself to 1 or 2 sentences. So we are going to get cut off here. I will be posting this, and I look forward to reading your essays. Thanks for meeting with me, everyone. And I will talk to you all very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you a lot. Bye.